Welcome to Across the Ocean, the show for underwater image making enthusiasts. This is Matthias from Zurich.
And I'm James in Miami.
Hey there, underwater image enthusiasts. Welcome back to the latest episode of Across the Ocean with myself and my buddy James over on the other side. James, how's it going? How has the summer been going for you so far?
Yeah, doing great. I think by the time this goes out and you're watching this, I will be off on my travels again to Bikini. So that's a huge bucket list tick for me, being a wreck diving guy. So right now at time of recording, I'm in the preparation phase of getting together specialist equipment and parts and this, that, and the other, and stuff I need to be, self-supported out in that very remote diving destination, probably one of the remotest you could ever wish for on the planet. So that's what's happening in my life. How's things in Zurich?
Good over here. Everything's fine. I was just wanted to say that it seems like you have a very tough life, and just offering a hand here if you do need any relief, if you need any help, if you need anything that will weight that burden down a little bit, you can always come to me.
That's true. I've been trying to get you on Truck Lagoon. I've been trying to get you on the Sardine Run. Hasn't happened yet. Just saying.
That's true. Well, Good times will come and good things take time to happen. I am very positive and optimistic that when the time and the circumstances are right, this will all the little puzzle pieces will fall into place and it will happen. But we can't really say that we haven't been doing trips together in the past and that we're not planning on doing trips together in the future. And this kind of goes into or opens up our conversation for today's or this month episode quite nicely, because we want to talk about something that we have witnessed and seen on our last group trip that we did together in Bali and Komodo not too long ago. Do you want to enlighten our audience as to what I'm talking about and what was kind of a eye-opener for us that we saw on that trip?
Yeah, sure thing. So I brought this up as a possible topic for an Across the Ocean because I think there's a lot of value here for our audience. But one of the things that I achieved while we were diving in the Bali portion of the trip in particular, which was largely muck focused, was that we had some new products, some sheer water dive computers, and I had a couple of our divers test the computers out, and I was filming them using the computers to shoot some B-roll. And while I'm doing that and I'm filming these two divers, they're doing their dive, and they're doing muck diving, and they're looking for macro stuff. In particular, Sean the Sheep nudibranchs was the particular topic of this one exact dive I'm talking about. And I got to watch this pair of divers, Nick and Eva, work together and achieve insane levels of macro photo and video perfection, and we can actually go as far now as to say award-winning as well. I don't think they'd mind us saying. So they and it wasn't that they were it wasn't the technical proficiency or they weren't using $25,000 8K cinema cameras. It wasn't anything like that impressed me. What impressed me the most was watching a buddy team work so cleanly and so efficiently as a team. It really left a lasting impression on me. They had their own language down there. They knew exactly what they meant, and I asked them about it afterwards. I asked Eva about it. I said, what were all those hand signals? Because they're not hand signals you use in scuba diving. They're not ones that I've taught or used as a technical diving instructor, and they had all kinds of weird things going on, and I was like, what did that mean? Oh, that meant more light, or that meant move the light further away, or that meant move the light closer, or change the angle, and they had this whole system of communication that they were able to work, that they intuitively knew how the other person was thinking, and they shared the workload to get these images together. And we often think of photography and videography as a solo discipline, one person and a camera and a shutter release button. But this was just something that I had never seen before, that efficiently. So I brought it up to you, Matthias. What am I missing there? Add on to that.
Well, you mentioned all the important things, and I can only agree with what you said, because I was lucky enough to witness how Eva and Nick worked together on our previous trip in the Philippines in 2023. They were actually taking a one-on-one lesson with me on underwater filming, and even before we did that lesson, they were already like very much into that whole communication system and working together as a buddy team. And I think that that's something that's incredibly valuable, and I would even say that they are incredibly lucky to have each other in that sense, that they can work together as a buddy team in such an effective and efficient way. And because they both, it's not like one of them is the cameraman and the other person is like the model or the assistant. No, they're sharing those responsibilities equally amongst the two of them. And they carry two cameras with them. So normally they have like a wide angle camera, which is either like a GoPro or a TG6, I think, at the moment, or they have a camera that is very capable of capturing macro stuff, which can be an iPhone in like a diphog housing, or again the TG6 for the super macro stuff, which is very capable in that field too. And with that setup, they can like capture and cover everything that they need to come up and create like a little story within a couple of shots. And you can see that quite nicely how they manage to do that on all the content they put out on their social channels, primarily on Instagram. And I'll be so free to link their Instagram channel down in the video description below. So if you want to get some inspiration, feel free to go over there and check some of their incredible videos out. But when you mentioned that we were preparing for this episode, and we were like, okay, how are we gonna put this into an episode, and what's gonna be the takeaway for the people watching this episode? I mean, not everyone is as lucky as Nick and Eva to have a partner, a dive buddy, that they work together so well and so seamlessly as those two. And what if, like, for example, your partner, your wife or your husband is not diving, or you don't have a dive buddy that you regularly dive with, go on trips with, that you know how they dive and that you can rely on in terms of helping each other underwater? Well, then it gets a little difficult, doesn't it, when you're like a solo traveler and you go someplace and you know you've got, let's stay with Shaun the Sheep, and you know you want to capture a really good shot of Shaun the Sheep, that teeny tiny little nudie break. And now, how are you gonna do that if you don't know who you're gonna be buddied up with, whether you're gonna be buddied up with someone or not, what the dive group's gonna look like? There's so many unknown factors in that equation that it makes it really difficult to predict with like a certainty that you're gonna be able to get the shot that you really want. So we came up with a couple of tips for you guys if you don't happen to be in a lucky position that you have a dive partner that works seamlessly and efficiently together with you, and if you're traveling alone, here's a couple of tips how you can make sure or increase the chances of getting the shots that you really want on a trip that you're going on. And for the first point, I would like to pass it back to you, James, and sure. Let us hear that first tip that we've got for our audience.
Yeah, so I think, if you're not, and to expand on that, so Nick and Eva are a great buddy pair. Karina, my wife, loves diving, but she doesn't have much interest in filming. But what she has morphed her focus on when we've started doing these muck dives, but both in the Philippines and in Bali, was she gets really into the hide and seek of finding things for me to film. So she gets really into that side of things. And then obviously you and Sebastian, as a regular diving buddy pair, you guys have your own way of working together as well, because you dive together all the time and you film together all the time, and so on. Obviously, and your point is completely valid, those are the exceptions, that we are very lucky to have that setup, and most people don't. It's more than fair to say if you don't have a regular buddy pair, it's a lot more more difficult, a lot more challenging, for sure. But definitely what we thought of, you know, probably the most obvious hint that we can give you is hire a private guide, hire a professional buddy. Right? That's the number one thing that springs to my mind is hire a professional guide, particularly if they're from the area where you're diving, because that is going to increase your chance of finding Shaun the sheep. They know on which leaves Shaun the sheeps like to hang out. They know where to find that particular piece of vegetation and so on. So that's even better than having a buddy who you've imported to the country where you're diving who doesn't know any more than you know. So that can actually be really, really advantageous. And in addition to that, they are on your schedule. If you're hiring a private guide, they are on your schedule, which means you're not inconveniencing a group, you're staying safe, and you can work at your own pace. I am still very much a novice macro video and photographer. So it takes me a long time to get set up and get my tripod in the right position, get my settings right and dialed in and this and the other. And I often feel if I'm with a group that I'm either dragging behind or inconveniencing other people. You don't have any of those worries if you hire a private guide. You're on your own schedule, happy days. So that's probably my most important point. But on that as well, you've got some points about just the operators in general that you should be looking at.
Absolutely, yes. I think they have a very valid point. I agree that this is probably the most important one, and if there's any way to get a private guide, I would always recommend to do that. Also, I would really take care in picking out your dive operators and be very cautious as to how they operate their dives in regards to the numbers they give each of the dive guides, in regards to how they're doing their dives, whether they're, you know, from land-based or whether you're using boats. All that sort of stuff is quite important. Specifically the number of dives per guide. Like if they're, because I know dive operations where they say that they're only going to be doing 2 dives per guide, and this is, it's not the ideal situation, but it's as close as it gets to an ideal situation. If you don't have your own buddy, you can't hire a private guide. Well, then make sure that the numbers that each dive guide is given are as small as possible. You don't want to end up in a group of 8 divers sharing one dive guide and you're the only one with a camera, and it's just not going to be a very satisfactory situation for the dive guide, nor for the other divers, nor for yourself, who's going to be trying to capture something while still lagging behind and trying to catch up with the group. So really put in a little extra effort in doing the research and checking up on the dive operations, the dive centers, how they run their operation, how they put their ratio between dive guides and guests. And if you do that, you're just gonna have a more pleasant experience on location, and you can avoid some disappointment, because I know how it is. And if you are very camera enthusiastic and you go on a dive and you see that very special animal underwater, but you don't get a chance to film it, and this might be different with other people, but for me, this is like sort of like a medium-sized drama. You know, if I see something really cool that I haven't filmed before, but I don't get the chance to get a good shot of it, then I'm kind of happy that I've seen it, but I'm at the same time really pissed that I wasn't able to take a good shot. So it's like a big dilemma, you know, and you can avoid that by doing a little bit of research there before you get on location and choose your dive operation.
You know, you've got to temper your expectations. You've got to be fair. You've got to have some give and take. Yes, you have your own ambitions for shots you want to get. Maybe you've got 10 items on your list for a week of diving. It's okay to get 5 or 8 of them. You know, don't expect 100%. And if you didn't bring a buddy with you, and you are with a non-camera focused buddy, find a buddy. You know, improve your circumstances for the next trip. Join a dive club, find a buddy. I've got videos on my channel about how to find buddies, because I get asked that all the time. But you got to understand, you know, they want to go and do the dives and not film stuff, and there's going to be a process underwater and so on. So there has to be some give and take there, and you have to expect a certain amount of flexibility. You know, if you're Nick and Eva, you can go off and do your dives and you're not bothering anybody else, and you're your own team and you're shooting what you want to shoot 100% of the time. That's, like you said, the ideal, that's the optimum. But if you're not in that situation, you have to expect some give and take. You can't have it all going your way every single dive. So I think that's fair to mention.
I couldn't agree more, and that's also why I normally don't end up with the shot I want if I'm diving in a group of divers, because I try to be respectful of everyone else's needs and not hold up the group too long because I want to get that perfect shot. If that's really what I want to do, then as you said, I should be looking for someone who is going to be sticking with me on the dive and helping me achieve that. And that brings me to my next point, which is if you get on location, you don't have your own buddy, the dive group gets set up and you get to the point where dive buddies are assigned, try to see if there is someone else with a camera, preferably a camera that is sort of the same size as your camera, because you can kind of see someone who has a huge camera, they're most likely going to take a little longer. Someone who has a smaller camera, they are typically speaking a little quicker on getting the shot and moving on. But make sure that you do get buddied up and take initiative and ask for a buddy who also has a camera, so that you can be a buddy pair on that dive. It's just going to make it easier on the dive guide, on the operation, but also on you two as a buddy pair, because you can then take turns taking shots of whatever you see down there, and your buddy is most likely going to be more happy to stay there a little longer with you while you take the shot, and vice versa, because you both appreciate the other person waiting for you while you take the shot and move on after that.
Yeah, and I think failing that, then we should probably talk about solo diving.
We should.
Right?
Yes.
So
yes.
Let me preface this by saying solo diving is still not a widely accepted practice in all parts of the world, in all parts of scuba diving. It's not always an acceptable practice. Case in point, the liveaboard we were just on. They said during the dive safety briefing, there is no solo diving on our boat. Okay, cool. Done.
Yeah.
That's fine, all right? But in some parts of the world, it is acceptable. Okay? Now, being a trained solo diver, I'm trying to be really careful here, being a trained solo diver is very, very different from just going off and doing a dive on your own. There are equipment and safety considerations, there are training procedures. It is a course that has absolute training value. The certification card, and I get in trouble all the time on my channel for saying things like this, the certification card for solo diving has value. It represents training that you've undertaken that you can show somebody, hey, I'm going to dive solo, I'm going to be properly equipped, I'm going to have an independent gas source with me, with a regulator, with clips on it that's completely separate from my main gas supply. I've done navigation tests, I've done swim tests, so I am trained as a solo diver. I like what the cruise director on the liveaboard said. Your camera is not your buddy. It's not going to donate gas to you in an out of gas situation. So if you don't have a private guide situation, if you don't have a camera person as a buddy, or at least a very, very patient buddy who's allowing you to get the shots you want, solo diving is an option. A, with proper training, and B, requiring that you have all the equipment and gear that's necessary, and that you're with an operator that permits it, because there's no point throwing a tantrum on a boat. Well, I'm a solo diver, I'm a trained solo diver, look, I got my card. If that's the policy of the operation you're going with, sorry, you're not going to be solo diving if they say no. So that might be a question you want to ask. If you're really, really serious about it, call the operators beforehand and be like, do you allow solo diving? I'll be fully equipped, I'm fully trained. Is it permissible? I think that's an important thing to know before you go, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it is an absolute valid solution to go for if all of the above discussed sort of tips or situations do not apply to you, or you cannot put yourself into these situations. Then I think solo diving, there's nothing wrong with it. Again, as you said, if you're properly equipped, properly trained, and you're diving with an operation that allows that within their operational, the way they operate their diving schedules and their dives. A last thing that I would like to mention here as well, which is a very obvious thing and would have probably needed to be placed earlier on in our discussion, but nevertheless, I still want to mention it here. It's to talk to your guide or your buddy before the dive. In particular, if it's the first time you're diving with that guide or that buddy, just to tell them that, you know, even though you have a camera with you, it might not be very obvious to the guide or your dive buddy that you're intending on actually spending a little extra time on your subjects to take a good photo or a good video clip of it. So be you know, be open about it. Go up to your dive guide, to your buddy, and tell them, look, I've got my camera with me, I'm an experienced cameraman, this is what I want to do, I would like to, you know, get a good shot of showing the sheep. So the dive guide can, even within a group, if he knows that you want to take a good shot of showing the sheep, he can, if he's a good dive guide, what he's going to do is once he's found showing the sheep, he's going to point you to that little critter, he's going to let you sit there and take a couple of minutes taking a shot of showing the sheep, while he will show something else in the vicinity, in the close vicinity to all the other divers, giving you some extra time with showing the sheep to get that shot. Once you've taken the shot, you can move away and the other people can have a look at showing the sheep, because honestly, if you're not with a camera, you're not going to be really looking at showing the sheep for any longer than 20 seconds, because it's simply so small, you won't really see much of that little tiny nudibranch if you don't have a camera with a big macro lens and a diopter and what else strapped to the front of your camera. So that's definitely something that I would also stress here. Go and talk to your guide, talk to your buddy, let them know what your goals are for the dive and how you would like to go through the dive, and then you can have an open discussion. You know, maybe the guide is also going to tell you, well, look, on this dive we can't do it because we expect current, we won't be able to stay in one place, and then you can still decide whether you want to take your camera with you, but it's been clearly discussed that you won't get any extra time on taking shots, especially not macro shots, so you can do some flyby shots if you really want to, or you might even decide to leave your camera on land, which, and this is a big thing coming from me, is also acceptable. You know, I had to learn this the hard way too. It is very acceptable to leave your camera on land every now and then and just enjoy the dive. And for many, many years, this wasn't, you know, not an option for me at all. And at one point I learned that it actually helps me to enjoy my dives even more if every now and then, occasionally, I leave my camera on land, and I try to do this like once to twice on like a 2 weeks trip like we had here in recently in Bali and Komodo, because it actually really helps me to appreciate then again being in the water with a camera and being able to concentrate completely on getting the shot that I want.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first.
Right? First and maybe even last, but I don't know.
I'm pretty shocked. I'm pretty shocked.
It's, as I said.
To your point, there was one dive where I got in and I had a pressure fail on the camera housing. So it was green when I put it on the boat, and then when I went to get in the water, it was flashing red. So obviously I didn't take the camera in the water, and I left it on the boat, and it was taken back to the liveaboard, and so I did the dive. One of the most enjoyable dives of the whole trip.
Right.
No pressure to film, no camera to manage, nothing to drag around underwater. Just me and Karina, my wife, buddy pair, looking at cool stuff. Super cool. So I completely get that.
It could be, right? It could be so nice.
Yeah. Damn cameras always getting in the way of fun diving.
No, we're just joking. Well, I'm just joking. I don't know about you, but I'm just
absolutely
joking. I love diving with my
first.
camera. I love diving with my camera. Yeah, exactly. All right, so yeah, I think this pretty much sums up our little tips and recommendations for how to go about the buddy situation for underwater videographers or photographers if you're not traveling with your preferred and favorite dive buddy. We hope that you can get something out of these little tips and inspirations and hopefully use them on your next and upcoming trips and get an even better experience while filming or taking photos underwater, not just for yourself, but also for your dive guide and all the other divers within your group. Would you like to add anything to that topic, James?
No, just to say, as you said, you're going to link Eva's and Nick's Instagram, and I think they have YouTube as well. Stick it down in the description. Guys, go check it out, their work. It's pretty fun, and they have some behind-the-scenes footage of how they work together underwater, and it's pretty epic to see. It's pretty awesome. So go check that out and throw our friends a like or a subscribe. I think they'd appreciate it.
Awesome. So thanks very much for watching, guys. Until next time, when we see you back here at Across the Ocean, have an awesome time. Keep capturing all those amazing underwater adventures of yours. James, thank you so much for being on the show again. Greetings to Miami, and to you guys, all the best, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care. See you soon.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.